Hey everybody, I'm going to show you how to make this rock into a spearhead using a simple tool, which is a copper-headed bopper. This is a wooden handle and it's got a copper pipe end on there. Now I could use a rock, could use an antler, and I showed some of that in a previous video, but I'm going to go ahead and knap this into a usable projectile point like a spearhead. Let's get started by knocking off all of these sharp edges. I know you probably think this could be made into a spear right now with this sharp edge, but I need to basically knock all that off. And there's going to be some blood. There's definitely going to be chips flying, so wear your glasses, use a piece of protective leather. And all I'm doing is getting rid of that really feather edge. And now I'm going to be working into these big deltas, these big platforms. So by hitting this right here, this point, it'll drive off a big flake underneath. All right, and I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to use an old piece of grinding stone to dull some of those sharp points. It's mainly just for safety, so I don't cut myself, but also it gives yourself good platforms to drive into, get a good grip on those. Okay, so let's look at a platform. This right here is a decent platform. It's bent down, and if I strike it here in a downward motion, it'll take off a big flake, and I'm driving into the piece, supporting it against my leg. Let's give it a try. Okay. When I flip it over, look at that. This right here can be used easily to make an arrowhead, so I'll save that. And here's another little bit of debris. And you see it took off that big flake right there. And my goal right now is to go through and to thin the piece. So here's a platform right here, that little downward V. And I'm going to blast this flake right here out by hitting right on that point. Alright, and our goal is to get a center line around the entire piece and to thin out a lot of these big fat pieces like right here. I'm going to try to work on this next. See all those flakes I just took off? And I got rid of most of that big bump. So now I'm going to come over here, flip the piece upside down, and try to blow this flake, all this meat off, by hitting it downward, right on that delta, right on that point, or that platform. Okay, here's showing this again. There's where I hit, and it broke this off. Again, that's a perfect material to make an arrowhead out of. And you see that I'm getting thinner and thinner, looking at my heavy spots, and I'm just going to keep going around and do that, try to get this as thin as possible, and then we'll work it into the shape we want. Alright, you see all this garbage right here? I've got a whole bunch of really nice platforms. Try to strike and get rid of a lot of this mass right in there. I'm supporting it underneath. This is not recommended for beginners because you're going to get cuts, you're going to get bloody. Starting to look like a primitive tool, isn't it? Okay, so we've got this biface where it's got a nice center line and it's fairly thin and it's kind of long oval shape. Now what I'm going to do is start breaking it into its final shape just by crushing the edges down and then trying to continue to thin it as I go along. Okay, the very last stage is going to be using my Ishi stick. This is a copper nail in a big Dacron handle, and I'm going to be popping off each one of those little deltas, driving smaller flakes in, and try to finish this piece into a pretty respectable spearhead. So let's get going with the Ishi stick. Okay, so I just did this entire line right here. I think you can see some of those flake scars. And now I'll continue it on the other side and then grind it and then flip it and do the same thing on all 4 directions. 2 sides in each direction. Alright, I'm getting into the final shape using a finer pressure flaker tool and trying to work the tip first, and then I'll remove the bolt from the bottom.